Wayward was recently released on Netflix, and I think it's safe to say that this was a rather strange 8-episode series, focused on the cult that Toni Collette's character Evelyn Wade essentially created, where there was a community in Tall Pines which had no children in it whatsoever. This series was filled with deeper themes focused around trauma, how children are shaped by their environments, and how the past can often determine somebody's future. So within the world of this show, the answer to avoiding getting adults that were damaged was to simply remove the trauma that was present, with an ending that showed that maybe Alex was too far gone and the town finally got its hands on him, and that he was the Marty in this situation in not being able to walk away like how Marty couldn't when in the wilderness. Let's now take a look at the deeper themes of the show, break down the ending, and I'll share if it's worth watching. Here is a review of Wayward and the ending explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. The connection between Evelyn and Laura. One thing that stood out a lot in this show was the connection between Evelyn the cult leader and the former student Laura. Laura once went through the leap procedure when she left the school, and from there she was essentially lobotomized to lose the feeling of being able to care for her unborn child. So there was an element of resentment that was forming between the former student towards the teacher. Evelyn essentially viewed Laura's unborn baby as a step in the new direction of the town that had never truly had children embedded within it, and as Evelyn was slowly dying as she took the leap herself, we then saw that the scenes were flashing between both Laura and Evelyn. This first started in the penultimate episode when we saw that they were both embracing their crowds at the cult's origin. This showed us that even though Laura wasn't necessarily trying to ascend this position of a cult leader like what Evelyn did, the behaviours that she was emitting, and by essentially allowing everybody to latch onto their trauma that they had with Evelyn, she was now this new person that was giving them all guidance and a space to be a wider family where they could heal together and feel accepted, exactly like how Evelyn founded Tall Pines. This is something that I don't think Laura was truly aware of herself, but it showed that there was a sense of power that she held that she didn't know that she had in her hands, so it was a dangerous position for her to be in. With Evelyn dying, it pretty much showed the handing over of power in the town, and that Laura was now that person that would be dictating the direction that it would be going in through this new age. The baby was seen to be everybody's because they were all now going to be viewed as one family. Why didn't Alex leave? Right at the end of the final episode, we saw that there was a dream sequence that was present, where Alex rocked up to the car with the newborn baby that he left for Abby following her escaping, and he told her that he'd be her protector and he'd always look out for her moving forward, even though she wasn't his responsibility. We were led to believe that this was actually happening. However, it turned out that it was all within his mind. Personally, I viewed this as Alex's leap if he'd have gone through with it, but as we saw, he wasn't able to do it. It was almost as if the town had gotten to him. He knew that if he left the town, then all of the bad things that he'd done would come back to haunt him, as Tall Pines was able to cover things up, and since being there, he'd done some very bad things. Like many of the other people in that town that were damaged and had trauma that had shaped them into the people that they were in the present day. Alex's troubled childhood and how it had impacted the negligence that he showed in his job and the violent side that he had was something that was ever present, and he couldn't shake. So that's the reason why I don't think Alex left. The town had gotten its grasp on him, plus Laura also woke up, so it wouldn't have been possible. Did Leile kill her sister, and why did she stay? One thing that I thought was quite sad in this show was the direction that Leile took. Her and Abby's relationship was one that showed that they were both similar in the fact that they messed up their grades and also in their behaviours, but they were from completely different backgrounds, almost as if Leile was the bad influence. But to me it showed that it didn't actually matter what background you were from, negligence and trauma could still impact you. The episode titled Mirror, which was episode 6, was a really interesting one because we almost saw how trauma, grief and memories can warp over time, and the likes of Leile was struggling to understand what actually happened to Jess, her sister, on the night that she died. She couldn't understand if she was responsible for it because she wanted her dead that much, because Leile always felt like she was the second best in her mother's eyes, so she feared that she deliberately let Jess die. Personally, I don't think that she did kill her sister. Abby said to her that Leile called her on the night that she died and she was traumatized and she didn't say that she killed her. But instead, like what we saw in her vision before Evelyn got her claws into her brain, she woke up and she was floating in the pool. So I feel it was representative of somebody who had a troubled mind and felt second best, whilst also not being in the right mindset, being shaped by the trauma that they endured and feeling a sense of responsibility due to the guilt of being there when it happened. rather than being the person that held her under or pushed her back. Leile sadly found comfort in the community and Tall Pines by the end of the show because she knew that she couldn't go back to her mother, as her mother was the person that made her feel terrible in the first place. The trauma bonding that she had, which resonated with the others, was something that meant that she naturally felt more attached to them. So when herself and Abby escaped, she decided to not go with her because she felt a sense of community amongst the group of friends that she'd made there. The symbolism of the toad. The toad was a repeated element throughout the entirety of the show, whether it be the drawings of the toad that was present in Evelyn's office, the sound of them constantly croaking around the town, or the ones that would just appear out of the blue. The incorporation of them had a couple of different meanings. The first is that toads are often said to be symbolic of transformation. This was a core theme that was at the heart of the show, and we saw many of the people being told that there was going to be new versions of themselves when they graduated and went beyond the ascending stage. This was shown most with the likes of Stacy when she was a completely different person by the end of the show, and also with the likes of Laura and Alex. As well as that, I'd also say that the whole leap process was something that was at the core of this show, and toads are known to leap between land and water, which almost acts as two different worlds, which is exactly what many of the characters were going through. With the leaping process being something that had plagued the likes of Laura's life so much, I feel like when we were with her constantly seeing them and her being in the water, it was representative of how that leaping process really impacted her. My review of the show. Now, I'm on the fence with this show, whilst I kind of thought that it got its core message across about the whole idea of generational trauma, the impact it can have on children, and the way that trauma itself shapes people. I do kind of feel like this show really lacked the punch that it needed to be able to really deliver it. The reveals in it, such as Evelyn killing Weldon, Laura killing her parents, and even Dwayne being part of it from the earlier days, it all just felt a bit underwhelming. I also thought Alex killing Dwayne with that massive rock was a bit ridiculous too. He didn't need to do that in the slightest, but I guess maybe it showed that the anger within him was always going to be present due to the trauma that he endured, and he was never going to be able to get rid of it. In terms of performances, Toni Collette is great at playing these roles, and the creepy cult leader is something that it feels like we've seen her do before, and we know that she's fully capable of doing it. However, what I will say is the likes of Leile and Abby were really well delivered, and they're going to be the characters that I remember the most from this. I also thought Stacy was creepy, so I was really impressed with that performance. Sometimes I say 8 episodes isn't enough, but in my opinion, this really was. A 40-minute runtime was about right too. I think it's a shame because I just feel like it had a lot to say, but it didn't really get much across, and it just didn't translate across the screen that well. I feel like we just needed a bit more backstory about what was actually going on. I thought the teenagers' mindsets of almost being indoctrinated into believing that these were terrible times of their lives and that they were essentially waiting for adulthood was an interesting perspective, because Abby had the complete opposite viewpoint in believing that these were some of the most exciting times that were being stolen from them. It all just felt like it was a bit inconsequential, so I thought the show was a shame. I didn't leave it feeling like I'd learned anything or was going to go running and telling somebody that they really needed to watch it, because that uncomfortable feeling that I was expecting to arrive at the end never truly did. If anything, I'd probably say that the first half of the season was the best because it was a bit more mysterious. So in terms of if you should watch this show, personally, I don't think it's actually that great. I think it almost tries to be too clever for its own good, and it lacks the true direction and meaning at the end to get it across well without having to peel away layers. Yes, trauma shapes people, and it can ultimately be used as leverage and as a weapon. We saw it with Evelyn, and we were about to see it with Laura, so it was circular. But overall, what I'd say is it's a shame, because with the way that it started, I just expected a little bit more. So, there you have it, a review of Wayward and the ending explained.